Hey Stampers, Kim from stampingimperfection.com. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm making a video with some Stamplorations stuff. I'm a guest designer for Stamplorations for January through March for their Throwback Thursday, and I have been playing with some of the goodies that I got from them, and I couldn't wait to share some of them with you. So I'm doing a stencil technique. They have just a ton of fantastic stencils, and I decided to get a couple of slimline card stencils because I'm making more slimline cards. So I didn't have anything like that, and it seems like a really stencils seem like a much less expensive way to go than dies these days. So I was really excited to see these stencils, and I had a lot of trouble deciding. I got two that are very similar to each other, but I know that these will get a lot of use. Now, while I'm guest designer, Sherry has given me a coupon code for my viewers and blog readers to use. If you go to Stamplorations and place an order and put in the code StampGirlKimberly, I'll put that below. You save 20% on your order, and she said you have unlimited use of that, so you can use it for as long as I'm a guest designer there. So for the next 3 months, Stamp Girl Kimberly will save you 20% at Stamplorations. So I got a few stencils, I got a couple of stamp sets, and I got a really wonderful cover die that I just love and can't wait to use. But this I had to try first. I've been taking some mixed media classes and experimenting a lot with mixed media. So right now what I'm doing is I'm using Vicki Boutin's, this is her rose gold glaze, and the glaze is very creamy. So I especially love this rose gold. She's got a blue glaze that's also gorgeous. But I don't know if you can get this rose gold anymore, but I just wanted to play with it. So I decided I would play with two of the stencils and two different molding pastes. So, or texture pastes. Like, they're really all the same kind of thing. They just have different consistencies, and I wanted to see if this technique would work, how it would work with these two particular ones that I pulled out. So I just covered the entire stencil, and now I'm going to pour on some rose gold embossing powder. I'm just going to sprinkle it on and try to get a little bit here and there. I don't want to cover the whole thing. You could cover the whole thing if you want to, but I didn't want to cover up that gorgeous paste. And I'm going to just get rid of the excess because I don't want to have molding paste in my embossing powder container. So right away you want to take this and you want to clean up that molding paste off your stencil. So you do not want that to sit on your stencil or on your tool. So I'm going to put my piece aside for a little while I do the molding paste on the other one, but first I'm going to go clean my stencil. So to clean that off, I always just run it under warm water in my utility sink and then dry it gently with a paper towel. And I just pat dry so I don't bend any of the things. Now you'll notice that I'm using my purple tape to just tape this down to my craft mat. And you want to have a craft mat, like a glass mat or a craft mat that's easy to clean up, like this Ranger one that I'm using. The first stencil I used was called Artsy Swirls. This one is called All Swirls. And this time I'm using this Glitter Glitz gel. This is Gina K Glitter Glitz gel, and it's the iridescent one. And it's already got a lot of sparkle, but I think this is a really pretty paste. I got this little like sample size in a craft kit or something. And you can see I've almost used the whole jar. Now I'm not covering the whole stencil this time. I actually really almost prefer the way it looks, depending on the technique I'm using. But when I do the pastes and stuff, I almost prefer that I don't cover the whole stencil, that it's uneven around. So the next thing I'm going to use is I have this really pretty Serenity Blue embossing powder. And again, I believe I got that in a kit also. I don't usually buy colored embossing powder, but this is so pretty. I'm so happy I have it wherever it came from. So you can see this is the first time I've used it. It's been in my stash a while, and I'm just sprinkling this on in random places, and then I'm going to tap off the excess. This time I'm tapping it into my little garbage bin. And if you don't have a little garbage bin like that on your desk, you need to get one, because your desk, I promise you, will stay so much cleaner. So now I'm going to stop and clean my stencil. So usually with techniques, you let your molding paste dry. I am not doing that here. I want to see what happens when I go ahead and heat set this before the molding paste is dry. So I thought I had my heat tool really warmed up, but I was surprised that it took quite a bit of time for that embossing paste to actually start like changing. And I loved the effect I got with this glaze. This glaze sort of puffed up and it bubbled up in some places. And then when the embossing powder started to set and change, I got this amazing texture. Like, I love how this looks. It's so different. And it almost looks like reptile skin. I love it so much. And I really love the way that rose gold powder looks on that rose gold glaze. And you can see they're two very different colors of rose gold. Like, rose gold differs from company to company. So it's always a good idea to swatch your things so you know what you're working with. But I just kept heat embossing until all of the embossing powder had changed and until all of that texture glaze had puffed up. It was so cool when I was all done. So I'm super happy with the result of this. Now I did the same thing to that glitter glaze, that Gina K glitter glaze from Thermoweb, and it didn't puff up. It didn't change at all. It looks just like it always does. But how cool does that look? So I'll do the same thing to this. This one went a little faster. The only thing my heat tool did to this glaze was basically it dried it. Now, the paper is like warping a little bit. So what I did to fix that, first of all, I let it sit overnight before I did anything more. But to fix that, I actually used a double-sided sticky sheet. So I covered the entire back of my panel once I cut it down with the sticky sheet so that I could adhere the whole thing flat to my card base or whatever I end up putting it on. And once this is done, I love how this looks. Isn't that pretty? Like, if I get it just right in the light, you can see all of the sparkle. And that blue embossing paste just gives it a really cool look. Like, I think that looks like snow. And I think it would make an awesome background for a snowy scene. And it's still winter everywhere. So, snowy scenes are still appropriate. And I know everybody's starting to make spring cards, but people are still getting a lot of snow. So I love the effect. Now, I got a couple different things here. I got one of the Stamplorations. They're called Say It Big, and it's just a big saying. Life is the art of drawing without an eraser. And I'm thinking that I really want to do that on this piece that I created. So I'm just looking at the things that I have. I have a nice floral, which I don't think I'm going to use. Love those birds. There's 5 different birds there, and those are called small birds. And I love the artsy way they look. So I'm thinking that will be kind of perfect with this sentiment. And then I also have that Cutplorations is a die cut that says big hugs. So I know I'm going to use that on the blue one. So I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to pull out a piece of vellum, and I'm just kind of playing with it to see where I want to use it. And then I realize I have a card sketch due for one of the design teams that I'm on, so I'm going to use the sketch from that design team with this stuff. So I'm going to go find my vellum. So I decided to go ahead and stamp those birds, but first I had to admire my pieces again. I did cut these down to about 3 by 8. So I've got those cut down, I trimmed them off, and I just love this. Like, I love how it bubbled up. I'm going to try every one of my texture pastes that I have to see how it behaves, and my molding pastes. Like, I just can't wait to see how they all behave. So I stamped all 5 of those birds, and this again is the STAMPlorations small bird set. I used my Misty, I stamped them out, and I'm loving these birds. They're so artsy, and I think it's just a beautiful illustration. And I did the big one in blue because I think it's going to look really pretty on that white paste that I use with the blue embossing powder. So I've pulled out a few of the blues. And I'm going to do those 2 little birds in blue also. So I colored the big bird in with B39, B37, B34, and B32. And then I just used C2 and C00. For the beaks and the feet, I used YR16, YR12, and then some Y15 because I like to brighten up my oranges with that yellow. So I'm going to do the same thing with the feet. And I'm not trying to do any fancy coloring here because I want it to have an artsy feel. So I pulled out some, just some browns to do the branch. It was E77 and E71 that I used there. And then I'm going to take that B39, that's actually 37. I meant to grab 39. Now I'll grab 39. That's the darkest color that I'm using, and I'll go back over it, and then I'll pick up the B37 and go back over that one. So for this one, I'm going to leave a light space in the center. So now I'm using B34. My technique is always I like to start with a dark one, go over it with the next color, go over it with the next lighter color, and then the lightest color goes in the white space. And I'm using those same oranges and yellows. I should have colored those 2 little birds at the same time. I don't know why I didn't. To do the beaks. And the same blues, the B39 and then the B37. And this time I'm going to leave the light space more toward the belly just to see how it looks. Like, a lot of times I'm still like experimenting a lot with coloring. So I experiment while I make things, and you can see some of the experiments here. But I just wanted to see what that looked like. I just think these birds are so cute, and I love that seagull with the fish in its mouth. I love it. I see that view from my house all year long. It's just amazing. So for the seagull, I'm just using some grays, and I started with C5, and then I used a little C3. And I'm just like each time lengthening, going over what I previously did, then lengthening and widening the amount of space taken up by that color. Now I'm going to pull out C1, and then I'll fill it in with C00, which really leaves it white because seagulls have a lot of white on them. Depending on the size of the seagull, the age of the seagull, I've noticed that they're very different colors. Some of them have a lot of black. And I'm using the same oranges that I used before. And I'm just going to color that fish in with a little yellow, and I'm going to give him some black dots with like W9 or something. So I'm just keeping it very simple. I just want this to be fun and feel artsy. So I'll finish that one. And then I'm going to fussy cut these out. I'm not going to color in the toucan. So I've gone ahead and I've trimmed everything down, and I've cut out my card bases. These are cut at 7 by 8.5. I scored and folded them at 3.5. And I'm going to use a card sketch from the Atlantic Hearts Sketch Challenge that's for this week. And you can see that it's not a slimline card, and it's got quite a wide couple of strips along the right hand side. I'm going to make this a slimline card and I'm going to make this work. So I'm using a piece of gold washi tape on a strip of black cardstock, and that will give me my 2 stripes along the side. They're going to be very thin because I do not want to cut down any more of that fantastic embossed, molding paste embossed panel that I've created. So I'm creating this strip, and I'm going to attach that piece right on it. And you can see I have the double-sided sheet already on the back. So I'll put this down and center it, but I'm going to end up trimming off the white space. Like, it's always easier. I always find it easier to open this up. So you can really only, I feel like I'm really modifying this sketch a lot. First I'm making it slimline, and then I've really narrowed the strips of color down the side. But that's okay, because sketches are suggestions. That's how I feel about them. If somebody wants me to follow a sketch exactly, they better say that. I almost never follow a sketch exactly. So I heat embossed this gorgeous sentiment, or gorgeous saying, in really glossy black, and I love the way this came out. So I'm just trimming this down to fit on the top, and I'm going to put some glue on the back of that, and I'm going to put the glue only where the stamped image is. And I've got this art glitter glue that I just got and I've been using the last few days. So I want to see how this works with the vellum and how it works on that texture, because it's always hard to find stuff that actually sticks to texture, like glitter paper and anything like that. So I wanted to see how this worked. It's called art glitter glue, so I was hoping that would work out. So I fussy cut these 2 out, and I left a little white around the edge because I always like a little border. And I put 1 stamp foam dot on the top, and then I put glue on the bottom. So they have a little bit of dimension, but not too much. I love the way that card came out. I'm so happy with that. So I've used the Artsy Swirl, which is the other stencil. I'll pull that out here. The Artsy Swirl for that one, and I am loving the way that came out. I'll have all my stuff listed below too, so you can check it out, and I'll put that coupon code for 20% off. Remember, you can use that as many times as you want to. So I've taken the other panel and I've attached that to a nice blue piece of cardstock from actually I'm not sure where that came from, but it is die cut with one of the slimline dies I have. I only have like 2, so I like the scallop a lot. So I put that on the scallop, and I cut it down to fit in the scallop. So I'm going to use the seagull and that bluebird because I love them, and I use that STAMPlorations Big Hugs, and I die cut that 3 times, and then I glued those 3 pieces together. So again, the birds are going to get some foam dots. I just want to give them a little bit of dimension. And I'll make sure at least part of them is sticking to some cardstock. And the Big Hugs die cuts will get some of that art glitter glue. And I'll put a clear block on top of them to hold the sentiment down, because I'm just using the glue. But by gluing 3 of those together, it made it nice and thick and easy to work with. And it also has given me some more dimension on it. So that's really pretty. And if you want it to look like enamel, remember that tip I gave a while back in another video to emboss it in clear embossing powder 2 or 3 times, and it'll look like a piece of enamel when you do that. So I'm just adding the dot above the eye, and that is going to complete this card. Again, I'm just going to add a little bit of weight, and you don't have to do that for very long, 30 seconds is good enough. But there you can see my 2 completed cards, and I will put all the links below. If you're not a subscriber, I would love you to subscribe to my channel. Please give this video a thumbs up, and make sure you stop by my blog at stampingimperfection.com. Thank you so much for watching.